Follow the sound of my voice. And if you follow the sound of my voice, you may go down a rabbit hole. And on the other side, you may fall into a land called fishing without bait, a lifetime without definitive expectations on yourself or placed there by others, where we help people explode into their lives with full impact mindfulness to live an unrestrained life. There's no admission fee. All that's required is the honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness to try. Good day, my friends. I'm Jim Ellermeyer. I'm a behavioral health therapist, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend, co-host, and producer of this program, Mr. Mike.
Hello, Jim. Good to be back with you here these last days of 2019.
It's been a bit since we do that. However, you and I often talk about time and whether we're going through time on an assembly line or we're living in time with time right in front of us.
Oh, and sometimes the time travel, like we talk about, driving home and seeing some old people. I had my head time traveling a good bit this last week over the holidays.
However, what we like to do is help people create future memories because the new year happens to have some type of magical meaning to people. Although what we always talk about, what time is it?
Right now.
I am right here and it is right now. So the title of our podcast today, Mike, is Who is Living Your Life? So Mike, who's living your life?
Well, hopefully I am right here in the driver's seat. I like to think.
There are two primary obstacles that hold people back from living their life. One is fear of failure, fear of being humiliated, fear of not being good enough, and that actually prevents us from moving forward and taking action. And the other is the need for approval, Mike. The need for approval. We need approval from others in order to do our tasks, to make that action and effort. And generally, we won't go ahead until we get somebody else's approval. However, as we've talked about in previous podcasts, Mike, when we base all of our choices, all of our decisions on the perceptions of others, are we living our life?
No, we're living through their thoughts and their expectations.
Absolutely. Is this going to be acceptable? How is this going to be viewed? If I wear this, if I do that, if I say this, is it going to be met with approval from others? If there's anything that anyone takes away from today's podcast, I'd like to have them work on giving themselves permission to live their life. Okay? We're living a world where everything's divided into winning or losing. And if you're not winning, you're
losing.
Yes. However, is that true?
What are the rules of winning and the losing? What are the markers to win or lose? It could be looking at a game of football, the one with the most points on the board is the winner. But in golf, the one with the lowest points is the winner.
Correct. And when we feel that we win, that actually means someone else
loses.
That's correct. That's correct. What is an argument but winning or losing?
Mm-hmm.
People go through their life, I have to have a good enough job. I have to have a good enough partner. I have to have a good enough material possession, so I'm winning. However, is there losing and is there winning? Victory is just starting something. You and I have talked about tomorrow being one of the most dangerous words in the English language. And living a life unrestrained. Mike, have you ever in your life felt that you were living your life like you were operating a vehicle and you had one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake at the same time?
Sometimes it's definitely felt like that.
So that's living a restrained life, is it not? And quite often I'll hear people, I'll know when the time is right. I'll know that when it's right. And you and I have often talked about wishing and hoping and waiting for something to happen, did we not?
Absolutely.
So we talk about action and effort. And again, I'm going to repeat the lottery story as we get new listeners people fade in, people fade out. So for the new listeners, the lottery story is about action and effort. So there was a person who prayed to win the lottery every day. Sweat blood. Nothing ever happened. Maybe some of you have that feeling. One day they got so angry that they went outside and they yelled up at the sky, where I guess they believe God is, and said, "Why won't you let me win the lottery?" And God called back down and said, "Could you meet me halfway and at least buy a ticket?" Now, I'd like everybody to consider that. Buying a ticket. How many people in life out there have said I never win anything? Some type of a drawing, some type of a sweepstakes that you enter. Most states have lotteries. But Ralph Waldo Emerson, great quote about that, and he said, "What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say." How does that resonate with you, Mike?
Pay attention to what do I do, what more than what do I say, right? Like that's the weight. Your actions are the weighted thing. The things you actually do. I can say all day I want to be a great podcaster, but if I don't turn on the record button and hit record and put it somewhere, that never happens.
So some of the great Stoic philosophers, Epictetus said at one point, if you want to be a writer, then write.
Mm-hmm. I often say for people that want to get into shooting video, and I was like, do you have a camera? Okay. Is it collecting dust or are you doing something with it? Well, I don't know what to shoot. It's like, well, then you find something to do with it.
Gee, I'd like to start a podcast. Well, get a microphone.
Get a microphone. Do that. Or, I don't know how many people, I probably said this before on the show. We had somebody that wanted to do a video show, like an educational video show. They were a teacher and they were like, I got the camera and I got the microphone and I got this and what do I do next? And I said, hit record. Seriously, hit record. There's nothing else for you to do but hit record and decide if you still want to do this, right? Because I love the idea of being a performer or something, and then you just realize all the other stuff that comes with it and realize maybe this isn't for me.
Oh, I love that. How do I listen to this song? Hit play.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And there's an old joke that somebody's going through New York City for the first time, and they're trying to find Carnegie Hall. And this was, of course, in the days before GPS systems in phones. They stop and yell out the window, "Hey, how do I get to Carnegie Hall?" And a person says, "Practice." We talked about Thoreau saying, "Most men lead lives of sound and fury, signifying nothing, and go to the grave with their song still in their hearts." If you want to be a singer, you
sing.
You sing. That's correct. So giving yourself permission and not waiting for others to give you that permission. When you started your company, Mike, when you started Sorgatron Media and Sidekick Media, did you ask about 4,000 people and wait until you got 3,500 yeses?
No. I was making things. I didn't ask to make a website for a community that we built for 9 years. I didn't ask to start a podcast that's still running 14 years now today. I just started it, and it created opportunities, and I took those opportunities and got in front of people, and that just started and did something.
So the two things that prevent people from living an unrestrained life and living their own life is fear of failure and having the approval of others to do it. Okay. So what would have happened if you would have failed, Mike?
I don't know what the failure would be for the things I started that turned into this.
I like the way you're talking.
I often say, if this whole thing goes belly up, what I'm going to be doing is continuing my wrestling podcast in my basement. If I don't have an office anymore, if I don't have Sorgatron Media anymore, I'm still going to have a microphone and the internet, and I'm going to speak on it. Like, nothing gets in the way of that idea for me. And I'll keep finding amazing people like you to have a conversation with.
You and I spent some time down in your basement.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did before we upgraded. Both of us were in your fine office here in Pittsburgh as well.
Many episodes. So when when we left Seclair, when it no longer was in existence, we took a lot of what we'd learned there and transferred it further into our life. What we were doing when you and I were at Seclair, we were creating future memories, is what we were doing.
Absolutely. It was a great training ground for what would become what this show is now, and how both of us learned from it to operate with other clients and business opportunities.
So we transferred what we did with the Seclair educational rounds to Namaste Holistic Counseling and our Fishing Without Bait podcast. I remember when I left Seclair, never an employee there, and we started Namaste Holistic Counseling, and my son, who's a bit on the conservative side, said to me, "What happens if you fail?" And I looked at him and I said, "Well, then I fail." There's a difference between a gamble and a risk, Mike.
Right, right.
With a risk, you can recover from a risk. You make the terms, you make the decisions on what you're risking. A gamble, you cannot recover from. A gamble means you're all in and there's no recovery. A risk means you can recover from a failure. So, what I suggest is people take risks and avoid a gamble.
So taking a risk in things that you can control. I can get on the microphone and start this and put it out there. Versus a gamble would be, I guess, in a comparative thing, trying to get a job in radio where that's up to somebody else, correct?
That would be a gamble where you could lose that. Or let's say that you put everything that you had in your life into one particular outcome. Everything that you had, and your life would be devastated with a failure. That's a gamble. A risk means that if Fishing Without Bait goes off the air today, then you and I are still going to be friends. We're going to continue to live our life, and we'll continue walking with our eyes wide open rather than our eyes wide shut. If Namaste closes down, I'll wash dishes. I can do something.
There's plenty of opportunities out there.
Yes, there are. Yes, there are. So we're not gambling everything that we have on a particular focused outcome, which again is the essence of Fishing Without Bait. Not having definitive expectations which would define your happiness or success. Not having a definitive expectation that would define your happiness or success.
Oftentimes, I'm asked like, "What are your goals for this?" And I'm just like, "Just to keep doing it." And they say, "Well, you have to actually have goals to grow into something." I'm just like, I don't know. I think I'm the most I don't want to use, not apathetic, but I just want to keep going forward.
Well, and you and I often talk about this, and we share this with our listeners. It's action and effort in the present that make a future possible. And we've often talked about there is no luck. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So you happen to have the skills, the video skills, and the podcasting skills that you've developed, the electronic technology wherewithal. And so when a situation now presents itself, you can take that opportunity.
Absolutely. And it's, I can't start doing this until somebody lets me do it. It's like, well, in so many ways, there's more accessibility these days, right? Whether it be making something or communicating something, when we talk about media, everything is cheap. Everybody has a computer for the most part, or if they don't, they can go to the library in most cases and have that access. I see a lot of people, starting businesses out of the library, basically their home business and stuff. There's a lot of opportunity, and it's not just, it's not just creating. It's not just business, but it is your life things. To roll that back, I know you've said often to me, the phone works both ways. And that's all it takes. A text message to somebody. If there's something if that thing you want to start is a better relationship with somebody, in your family or friends, that's all it takes.
You make yourself available. You reach out. This is maybe dates myself and perhaps yourself. Let's look at high school eras. And in the past, let's say a high school prom, there were many young ladies or young men that stayed home because no one asked them to go. Okay. However, in the present, which I find extremely refreshing, you don't have to have a date to go to the prom. You can go yourself or go with some friends. It doesn't have to necessarily, there doesn't have to be any structure or qualifications to go.
Absolutely.
Isn't that wonderful? So when we're talking about participating in life, and I have all the gratitude I give those people, all the admiration I can give them for saying, you know what, nobody invited me to the prom, however, I'm going anyway. I'm going to go have a good time. So our message, our New Year's message, and for those of you who believe that January 1st is a special day, and if it is a special day for you, then do make something happen. Give yourself permission to live an unrestrained life. Examine the fear that is holding you back. Examine whether you actually need the approval of others to move ahead, with the admonition that our main purpose in life is to do no harm to any being, anything. Our main purpose is to do no harm to anything in this life. In fact, Mike, that's my next tattoo. Do no harm.
Do no harm.
Absolutely. Do no harm. As always, we look for any comments and or criticisms. We'll respond to everyone. We're always looking for folks who want to share their recovery stories. And remember, most everybody is in recovery from something.
And I guess also a programming note, look forward in January, we'll be releasing our interview with Andrew, who had a fantastic story about his weight loss and his amazing life change that we'll be hearing over several weeks in January.
And as always, at the end of every podcast, we offer a free prescription, fruits, nuts, and vegetables, then unplug your television and perhaps take up fishing. And for a truly mindful experience, we suggest you fish without bait. Do a kindness for yourself and do a kindness for another. Forgive another and forgive yourself. Till all are free, none are free. Namaste.
Please check out our website at fishingwithoutbait.com, where you can listen to the show, comment on our discussions, and find out where you can subscribe to our podcast. If you're interested in flying the colors of Fishing Without Bait, click the shop icon on our website. We have clothing, mugs, cell phone cases, and so much more. Show the world that you fish without bait. This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com.